Watermelon. Don't you just love watermelon in the summer? It's cool and juicy and refreshing. Have you ever played with a watermelon in a pool? Do you know what it will do? It will float. Every year when I was a kid, my family would go to the same place for a beach vacation, and every year we looked forward to the watermelon races. They'd throw 5 or 6 watermelons in the pool and people would race to swim and push them from one end to the other. Then we'd cut them and eat huge wedges of the juicy, delicious fruit. Yum. Well, today we're picking back up with the story of Jacob. Do you remember that last week we started talking about Jacob? If you missed it, you might want to go back and hear the beginning of the story. But if you remember, at the end of last week's story, Jacob's mother Rebekah had told him to quickly leave and go to her brother, his uncle Laban's house. He was leaving to get away from his very angry brother who was threatening to kill him. But his parents also wanted him to marry someone who loved and trusted God, and they thought he'd have a better chance of being able to do that in Padan Aram than in Canaan. So Jacob left and started off toward Haran. Today's story is from Genesis 28. As he traveled, he reached a certain place and he stopped for the night. Taking one of the stones there, he put it under his head and lay down to sleep. I don't have any large stones here, but I do have this watermelon, so I'm going to use this watermelon as my stone for this illustration. Both are pretty tough to use as a pillow. While he was sleeping there, he had a dream. In his dream, he saw a stairway reaching to heaven, and angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And there, standing above, was God, who said, "I am the Lord your God, the God of your father Abraham, and the God of Isaac, and I will give you, your descendants, the land that you have been promised. And you will have as many descendants as there are dust in the earth. And you will spread out to the east and the west and the north and the south, and all people on earth will be blessed through your offspring. I am with you, and I will watch over you wherever you go and bring you back to this land. And I will not leave you until I have done all that I have promised you." Whoa. Now that was a pretty good dream. When Jacob woke up, he said, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." And then he was afraid and said, "How awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, the gate of heaven." Well, early the next morning, he took the stone that he'd placed under his head and he set it up like a pillar. And he poured oil on it and he called the place Bethel. And he made a vow and said, "If God will be with me and watch over me on this journey that I'm taking and will give me food to eat and clothes to wear so that I can return safely to my father's house, then the Lord will be my God, and this stone that I have set up as a pillar will be God's house. And of all that you give me, I will give you a tenth." Now this story, I like this story. There's great stuff in there. You could say that Jacob was probably pretty nervous as he left town. He was running for his life from his brother, but things are about to change. He lays down for the night and he puts his head on that rock pillow and he has this great dream. Do you remember when God had promised Abraham that his descendants would be as numerous as the stars in the sky? Well, here we see Abraham's grandson is being told his descendants will be as many as the grains of dust. That's a lot of descendants. And that they will be blessed and that God will be with them wherever they go, and God will keep his promise. And then when he wakes up, there's something there I think that's really important for each of us today. Jacob says, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I was not aware of it." Have you ever had a moment like that when you realized God was in the place where you were and maybe you'd been missing it? I know I have. What about the place that you are in right this very second? God is right there, wherever you are, in this ordinary place. God is with us in our ordinary places all the time, and maybe we sometimes miss it. But because God is there, how awesome is it? It should be called God's house. Take a few minutes with your family and name an ordinary sort of place where you might not have thought about God being there with you before, but now that you think about it, God is there. That is awesome. Think about all of your favorite places. the beach, the pool, your backyard, your room, the car. Name them on and on. And as you do, think about how God is there. Wherever you go, or as it is right now, wherever you stay in place, God is there. And God can speak to us and lead us and comfort and guide us and strengthen us in those very ordinary places. Jacob asked God to provide 3 things for him in this passage: for God to be with him, for God to provide food to eat and clothes to wear, and for God to return him safely to his father's house. What things do you need for God to provide for you? Again, take turns with your family members, naming and thanking God for providing the things you need. Jacob ends this part of the story worshiping God in the ordinary place where he had encountered God. And he makes a promise to give God 1/10 of all that God gives to him. As we think about all that God has given us, how can we give back to God a portion of what God has given us? Remember this watermelon? A watermelon isn't all that special. In fact, it's a pretty ordinary part of a summer menu at my house. But maybe the next time that you have a watermelon, you can let it remind you that surely God is in that place, however ordinary it may be. I'll see you next week with another super summer item and more of the story of Jacob.